To read the prophecy of the class, we would like to call a graduate who completed a 3-1 academic requirements for Bachelor of Science in Marine Transportation. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Paul and Istokia.
I was asked to do a report in psychology about PSI phenomenon or psi phenomenon, which includes telepathy, clairvoyance, and extrasensory perception. And in this topic, I stumbled on a new research in psychoanalysis, which is reverse hypnotism. Unlike hypnotism, which takes you back to the past, reverse hypnotism transports you to the future. The night after I had my research, I underwent the process of relaxation, which will stimulate the paranormal experience. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Everything went black, and I drifted off to the year 2013. Could you imagine? I was shocked, but I felt a bit excited to know I was teleported 20 years after college graduation. Then I was surprised when I saw myself writing a book about the whereabouts of the graduates of Marangal Class 2010 in Crystal E College. I didn't know I would want to write a book for my batch, but I believe I am doing this for a reason, and I finally got the right time. I was in Seoul, Korea when I began writing the book. At the front of the Rosie Hotel, I saw 3 familiar guys talking with a Korean lass. To my surprise, they waved at me, but could hardly recognize them. As I was getting closer to them, I recognized Joel Guillen, having a toast with his pals Ryan Alcala and Erwin Dimalan. They told me that they worked in Hong Kong for 6 years and currently employed at Mitsubishi Company, which is in Seoul branch as electrical engineers. How delightful to see mature guys unaffected by the Oriental serious me with pudgy looks. We had a little conversation and then decided to part our ways. After a brief tour of Seoul, I felt famished and entered a Korean restaurant, the Junwon Garden, for dinner. When I was finishing my dinner, I heard a boisterous laughter from 2 familiar women in a nearby table. Kathy Grace Paho and Jeremy Apari were teasing Karina Kagol to a handsome bartender doing drinks with a bottle of grenadine syrup. I approached them and they asked me for a drink. Jeremy and Kathy told me that both of them are chef assistants at La Mir Grand Hotel. They took a day off to meet Karina, who is having her vacation with his boyfriend. I was amazed and glad to see them moving on with their career. After taking the dinner and the talk with my batchmates, I went back to the hotel where I was staying. Just before I entered the room, I felt a tap on my shoulder. And the guy said, "Migo, kumusta? Long time no see." He noticed me when I checked in. I was surprised to see Joshua Otuhan with a balding top, but very distinguished in a Galliano slacks. He is having his honeymoon in Seoul after passing the licensure examination for chief officer. He is still connected with Wagenberg Shipping. And just before we ended our conversation, he told me that most of our classmates would go aboard the prestigious Royal Caribbean cruise ship bound for Japan. He said that some of our batchmates are now junior officers of the Freedom of the Seas. The next day, I bought a ticket for the cruise and took off for Japan. While doing the ship familiarization, I roamed around the ship and experienced the awesome luxury of its interiors and accommodation. While looking on the organizational chart of the deck department of the ship, I can't believe my eyes. Etched on the metal plate are Migueles Aldrin as third officer, second mate Milana Marlon, and Igbas Julius as chief officer. In the engine department, Makiling Celestino was the fourth engineer. Third engineer was Baldon Sherwin. Second engineer was Balatero Carl Patrick. And chief officer was Aparece Ferdinand, which stood out in front of me. While walking idly towards the luxury shops, a loud, familiar voice kept calling my name. And it turned out to be a very dapper and officer in gala suit. Romeo Guerrita. We exchanged high fives and relived old CEC days. He is now the safety officer of the Freedom of the Seas cruise ship. He invited me to the bridge to meet our former classmates. On the way to the bridge, I happened to pass by the ship's bar, where familiar faces waved their hands. Surprise, surprise! I saw Vincent Abosejo, Efrenilo Oxtero, Girlboy Eduardo, Lloyd Matthew Galendez, and Marlouis Romano toasted each other with a tequila sunrise. They told me that all of them passed the licensure examination for chief officer in the same year, and they plan to celebrate it in the cruise ship after they received the invitation. In the midst of the commotion of reacquainting with each other, a soft, velvety soprano soared with "Because You Love Me" in such a poignant fullness, evoking memories long forgotten. Christine Giboni and Marjorie Alasagas serenaded hundreds of guests. Then out of nowhere, a guy speaking in the dialect said, "Ngay, kumusta? Naligi ka diri?" I knew it was my sangay, John Paul Baha. More handsome and fashionably attired in a Zegna three-piece suit. He is the food and beverage director of the cruise ship. His managerial clout clinched a one-night exclusive booking of Christine and Marjorie to sing for the guests. Their main preoccupation is their business partnership. They own 2 exclusive restaurants back in Makati near the Shang and the Shangri-La. After several songs, a very appreciative crowd who refused to let them go gave them a standing ovation. The immensity of the Freedom of the Seas had in store a tremendous number of guests. Under the sparkle of cut crystal chandeliers in the ballroom, I bumped into Rendel Rosales, Shanit Sericos, and Lavina Bugahod in strapless black, emerald, and burgundy Chanel gowns. Yet, they have remained